Commander Marcus Chen had earned many names during his 30 years of military service across the outer colonies. The Covenant forces called him the Ghost of Proxima. Pirates whispered of Chen the Relentless. But it was the apex predator of Kepler 442b that gave him the most unexpected title of all. The first encounter happened during what should have been a routine patrol through the dense crimson forests of the planet's northern continent. Chen's reconnaissance team had been tracking unusual energy signatures when the creature emerged from the undergrowth like liquid shadow given form. It stood nearly 3 meters tall, its obsidian carapace gleaming with an oily iridescence that seemed to absorb light itself. 6 limbs moved with impossible grace, each ending in talons that could slice through reinforced steel. Its head, elongated and crowned with sensory spines, turned toward the humans with predatory intelligence that made Chen's survival instincts scream warnings. Chen's team raised their weapons, but he held up a hand. Something in the creature's posture wasn't quite right for an attack. It was curious, its massive head tilted, studying him with eyes like molten amber. When it spoke, the words came through their translation matrix as a low, rumbling whisper. "Deathbringer." The creature, which Chen would later learn was called a Kaithvar, stepped closer. Chen's team tensed, but the commander remained still, watching as the alien predator circled him slowly. Its claws traced the air mere centimeters, from his face testing, evaluating. "You have the scent," the Kaithvar continued, its voice like grinding stone, the scent of those who walk between worlds, who take life to preserve life. Chen had seen enough combat to understand death intimately. He'd made the hard choices, pulled triggers when necessary, carried the weight of command decisions that saved some lives at the cost of others. Somehow this creature recognized that burden in him. "Many of your kind fear us," the Kaithvar said. "You do not." "Should I?" Chen asked quietly. The creature's approximation of laughter was like tectonic plates shifting. "Perhaps. But fear makes prey of the living. You are not prey, Deathbringer. You are kindred." Over the following months, as Chen's unit established forward operating base Crimson, the encounters continued. The Kaithvar, who eventually revealed its name as Vexthak, would emerge from the forest at unpredictable intervals. Sometimes it would simply observe the humans at work. Other times it would engage Chen in philosophical discussions about the nature of survival, death, and the terrible mathematics of keeping others alive. Chen learned that the Kaithvar were not merely predators but guardians of their territory. They culled the weak, eliminated threats, maintained the delicate balance that kept their ecosystem functioning. They understood, as Chen did, that sometimes violence was the price of peace. Vexithak began calling him Koreth Mai, Uncle Death in the Kaithvar tongue, not death itself, but death's wise relative, the one who understood its necessity and wielded it with purpose rather than malice. The relationship might have remained philosophical if not for the morning. Chen found Vexthak waiting at the base perimeter, its usual predatory grace replaced by something that looked almost like desperation. "Koreth Mai," the creature rumbled. "I require assistance." Chen approached cautiously. Vexthak was injured, ichor seeping from wounds along its flank, but that wasn't what struck him as wrong. The proud predator's posture was different, protective, almost maternal. "The consuming swarm comes," Vexthak explained, referring to the hive-minded insectoids that periodically swept across continents, devouring everything in their path. "My territory, my younglings, they will not survive the crossing." That's when Chen saw them. 3 small shadows huddled beneath Vexthak's bulk. The cubs were perhaps a quarter of their parents' size, their carapaces still soft and vulnerable, their amber eyes wide with instinctive terror. "You would trust me with them?" Chen asked, understanding the magnitude of what was being requested. "Deathbringers understand the value of life," Vexthak replied. "You will do what must be done to preserve them, as I must do what must be done to turn the swarm." Chen knew it was essentially a suicide mission. A single Kaithvar, even an apex Predator like Vexthak couldn't stop an entire swarm, but it might be able to redirect them, lead them away from critical nesting grounds at the cost of its own life. How long? Chen asked. The swarm passes in 7 of your rotations. After that, they will be safe to return. Chen looked at it, the cubs, then back at Vexthak. What do they eat? The next week tested every leadership skill Chen had developed. Explaining to his superiors why he was harboring 3 alien predators required creative interpretation of first contact protocols. Managing his team's fear while teaching them how to handle creatures that could theoretically tear them apart demanded every ounce of his authority. But the cubs, Zix, Kayla, and more as Chen named them, proved surprisingly adaptable. They were curious about human technology, learned to recognize individual humans, and showed a startling capacity for play. Chen found himself oddly moved by their trust, the way they would curl up near his quarters at night, their soft purring a strange comfort. On the 4th day, long-range sensors detected the swarm's massive biosignature moving across the continent. On the 6th day, they picked up the energy discharges of a running battle as someone, led the horde away from the forest territories. On the 7th day, the swarm passed beyond sensor range, moving toward the planet's southern pole where the climate would eventually halt their advance. Vexthak never returned. Chen was reviewing supply requisitions when the cubs found him 3 months later. They had grown significantly, their carapaces hardening, their movements gaining, the fluid grace of their species. But when they saw him, they made the same sound he remembered from those first nights, the purring of contentment and safety. Korath Mai, Zix spoke, the first word Chen had heard from any of them. Uncle Death. They stayed for an hour, accepting, his gentle touches sharing what Chen could only interpret as gratitude. Then, as suddenly as they had appeared, they melted back into the forest to claim their inheritance. Chen never saw them again, but sometimes when his patrols ventured deep into the Crimson Woods, he would catch glimpses of shadows moving parallel to his path, watching, protecting. The colonists who eventually arrived at Kepler 442b found themselves under the unofficial protection of creatures that seemed to regard humans with unusual benevolence. The Kethvar allowed settlements in their territory, guided lost travelers to safety, and kept more dangerous predators at bay. Chen retired to administrative duties, but he kept the title Vexthak had given him. Sometimes the greatest honor was understanding that death and life were partners in an ancient dance, and wisdom lay in knowing when to lead and when to follow. In the end, perhaps that's what made humans special in the galaxy. Not their capacity for violence, but their ability to recognize when violence served love.